Okay, we are now live. As I said, good evening and welcome to another episode of To an Imperfect Union, presented by the political consciousness of West Coast Steeler fan. Um, you can find our social presence as on Facebook as West Coast Steeler fan and James E. King III. Which is also there. You can subscribe on YouTube and donate to our channel. Our Cash App is $JE King 3, and all proceeds go toward our presentations. So, without further ado, and uh, getting rid of the commercial aspects of the show, um, we there's some of the questions that I'm going to pose to our panel tonight as they come on is number one, um, about the possibility of a Republican DeSantis 45 ticket. Uh, so now you have a billionaire, which is Elon Musk, the man who's just purchased Twitter, urging independents to vote Republican. And you have the possibility of the oldest two men in history running for the presidency of our country. One will be 78, the other will be 81. Is there a Democratic ticket that's not between a rock and a hard place if they try to get A, Carmela elected, or B, Joe reelected? Now, as the godfather of the Republican Party, and I use that term literally, why wouldn't there be a deal as we used to see in these situations? The vice president usually gets the endorsement of the president as he's going out of office. So why would not Ron, being so much younger, say, okay, you can only run for one term anyway, and I'll build up my base of racism and hatred, and we can carry this on for 8 to 12 years. So I'm looking for a deal to be made. Is it the old saying that politicians make strange bedfellows? I'm looking for that to be the case. Uh, to further go down the line, it seems like MSNBC has fired Tiffany Cross. Now, we all jokingly talk about the stereotype of the angry black woman. And if you read the statement by MSNBC, and given the reasons why Miss Cross is no longer with them, it seems that she has violated some very strict company policies. Now, was Tiffany Cross too cross for mainstream media? Well, Tiffany did things that other MSNBC commentators, did not do, in which she challenged those who challenged her. If a Fox commentator uh, came on and said something that Tiffany didn't agree with, she called him out by name. And maybe maybe if she had done it anonymously, that broadcaster on the other network, for instance, instead of calling Tucker Carlson out by name, would that have made a difference? Furthermore, there is a rumor that MSNBC intends to go in another direction. And what does that mean? You have CNN leaning a little more right than you've seen it in the last generation. And according to the left, MSNBC is the propaganda arm of the left. So, what is this new direction that MSNBC intends to go in? Or is this the usual narrative that we use when you need to get rid of a disgruntled employee? I'm sure as the weeks go on, we will be hearing much more about this subject. Um, Especially from uh, if not Tiffany herself, people that maybe friends or uh, anonymous sources will be putting out things about Tiffany's firing, and a very abrupt firing at that, uh, um, which is seems to be another type of stereotypical, excuse me, uh, letting go of controversial employees. Um, I think we discussed the firing of uh, Don Lemon from uh, CNN, and again, it was we are going in a new direction, and um, we will be changing him from the primetime format to uh, the breakfast format. So these different networks seem to be gearing up for a Republican takeover uh, of both houses, and in 2024, the presidency. And as I said, I'm not a political analyst. I don't uh, necessarily uh, use polls. Well, I do use polls. I don't necessarily. I'm not a poll taker. I'm not one that says, I went out in the neighborhood and asked. That's not me. Now, if they put up a poll on CNN or Fox News Network, and I find it beneficial, sure, I'll use it. But in the meantime, um, excuse me, a little Sprite here. I should be getting a kickback. Excuse me, sponsorship. Anyway, um, as I said, down through history, it's been noted that politics and political deals are made in back rooms. They might not be the smoke-filled rooms of my generation, where you had the old political cartoons with the donkeys and uh, elephants sitting there smoking big cigars, or you know, although cigars do still uh, constitute a certain amount of elegance. I'll put it that way. Doesn't necessarily mean riches, but a lot of people are connoisseurs of tobacco. Uh, that being said, Um, I'm looking for a back deal to be made. You see, and I don't know how to make this sound any better, but it seems like white politicians can come together against a common foe, whereas we try to defend on all sides. And sometimes, as a as a defensive tactic, that doesn't work because you find yourself spread too thin and logistics can't supply your perimeter. Ask the men at Chosin Reservoir or any other, some of the other, the 300 at the Thermopylae Pass. You find yourself a position and you defend that position. And then you march forward. But you see, just like the Greeks at the pass, we let our enemies in the back door. Now, I think it would be great if DeSantis and 45 would split the Republican Party. And maybe that would give us the tactical advantage in numbers. But how do you do that when your alternative or alternatives seem to be, which will surely be a broken down Biden at the age of 81, or 45, who will be a year older than Biden was when he took the presidency. This to me is where the rock and the hard place comes. Do we know who is the real Kamala Harris? Is she the same Kamala Harris that used harsh sentencing on minorities in order to build up the trust of the Democratic machine in LA? Or is she this quiet Kamala that we haven't heard of since she was elected, except on special occasions? And most importantly, who is being groomed as her running mate? If she gets the Democratic nomination. You see, very subtly, or maybe not so subtly. I'm not sure how to read this because I'm going to show you my age here once again. I don't know if there's anyone on this show that's listening to this show that remembers when Dwight D. Eisenhower was the oldest presidential candidate at the age of 62. Now since then we've went through having the youngest president ever elected, JFK, and the first black president elected, Barack Obama. So is it time for a woman to be president? Are we taking turns, or who is the best person for the job? Some people, even within the black community, say, well, at least with Trump, you know what you're getting. Well, don't you know what you're getting with an 81-year-old Joe Biden that has been in politics all his life and was specifically chosen by Barack to get a certain demographic vote? I mean, yeah, come on. This is not the first time that this tactic has been used. Every tactic and every president in history has used this tactic to their advantage. You get a vice presidential candidate that brings in that conservative or rebellious, whatever demographic that you're missing to get you over that 50% mark is what you get from your running mate. That's the perception. So, looking at the present fabric of the Democratic Party, It would seem to be that we as liberals will be electing either the first woman, perhaps the first LGBTQ uh, vice presidential running mate, and for the first time, we will be having Gen Z voters. What does that vote mean to both parties? Right now, we have two Gen Z persons on the ballot, on ballots for uh, the House, uh, and there's one on each side. Uh, One is uh, uh, an election denier, and uh, still says that 45 won the election, but also says that she will abide by the election results, which is a question that I've asked conservatives that are election deniers, and I cannot get a straight answer because I don't understand why their election, in which the votes were counted, were legal and proper, and they deserved the office of their title, be it a senator, representative, state senator, whatever. But if a Democratic opponent won, their election was tainted. So, how did you win your election? Why didn't they take your seat? But that's a conversation for a different time. I also want to talk about Kanye and Kyrie Flat Earth Irving. Now, I have a sports podcast, and I have called Kyrie this for quite some time. So this is not the first time that we have talked about Kyrie. But I see Dr. Casey is here, and Dr. Casey, how are you this evening?
I'm doing pretty good on yourself.
Hey, every day above ground is a good day.
Right.
So, you know, I can figure it out from there.
Mhm.
So, how have things been this week?
Well, it's Monday, so everything has been fine so far.
Well, since we last talked, maybe I should put it that way.
Oh no, everything has been well. Just working on creating content. I am making some animation type videos for my content now, and it's a little bit more time consuming. So I try to go one day off, one day on because it's just a lot.
Anime?
Now it's like a a program software, but yes, it's gonna be a little bit different. The goal from the beginning was never to really have a lot of videos of me necessarily, but to put it in a way that people would be entertained and able to learn.
Very interesting. Very interesting. It, it's interesting how you know your generation can see that how stimulation actually works. Whereas things were a little more rigid in my generation, and you had to have a chalkboard, and uh, teachers had structured class lessons and things like that. As a mother, how does that challenge you?
Uh, what I do in my speaking freedom business really doesn't have much to do with what my kids do. Their way of learning is still standard learning. Now they do have a lot of things that they do on their computer, so they don't bring home a lot of homework, but um, it doesn't correlate.
Okay, okay. Um, a few things have happened since the last we were on, and Elon Musk has taken charge of Twitter.
Yep.
And one of his tweets this week was that independents should vote Republican. Now, uh, I'm not a big Elon fan uh, because of some of his political views, but um, what do you think of um, his content since he has taken over Twitter as president? Do you think that it'll be more effective as a paid subscription? And do you think that more it'll bring out more acceptable hate speech?
The subscription doesn't have anything to do with the type of content that's posted. The subscription plan is more of getting a verified check mark, which
Right.
for those that are creators and maybe starting out fresh, like you might not have 100,000 followers, you might not have 50,000 followers. So being able to get access to verify that one, you are you, that's what verification is supposed to be, saying that I am who I say I
Right.
am, and I'm not putting on no front about who I am. So when you think of it like that, when you get new creators that's trying to get their foot in any door that they can via Twitter, then I think that the subscription based verification is better than what is at hand now. Because right now, you can get 100,000 followers and get verified just because you got 100,000 followers. It doesn't mean that what you're doing is solid. Like there's a lot of people that are verified that post a lot of stuff, but it's really just people paying them to post stuff. They just doing ads. So they're not, and then their followers is not based on like truth, because everything that they do is an ad. They're running not a scam, but there's a lot of people that they can get a lot of followers, then they can start leading people down the wrong path. And not always are they who they are, who they say they are. So when they post who they are, it's something different than who they say they are, if that makes sense. So I
Yeah, but
think that go ahead.
you could also buy followers on Twitter. At least when it first started, I don't know if it's still that way or not. But
I mean, the person that's trying to authentically grow. Let's say for myself, I don't really look to be seen that much, so I haven't really even tried to ever get verified on anything. But given the ability to be verified can open up different doors for you based on what verification looks at as of now. So right now people look at verification as a oh, we can work with them. They'll be official to do ads or all of the promo type stuff, and it comes with money sometimes. So being able to say, okay, I'm gonna pay to get verified, I think it's not a bad idea. I understand business wise where he comes from trying to recoup some of his money, and the changes that need to be made overall. I get it. I don't think that it's a bad idea, especially for new content creators. You got a lot of new artists, new podcast hosts, new, everything. And if that can help them to get to where they want to be, then I said go for it.
Capitalist at heart.
I mean, no, it's not capitalism. We're giving you a free app where you can make money from. People are blowing up on these apps. They don't pay for these apps. Nobody said that the app had to be free, but the
No,
app
no, no.
itself is free. It's the verification that you're paying for. So if you want to be seen as somebody important, which is what verification is for most people, then you're gonna pay to be seen as somebody as somebody of importance on this app. But if you really think about it, when you go on Instagram, the people that's verified, they Instagram is definitely making some money off of them. It may
Well,
not be a small monthly fee, but they getting some money off of that.
well, I think all social, well, as we know, all social medias get some type of, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, you know, uh, they've all are quote unquote guilty of that part.
I mean,
But
the only social media platform that does not milk you as like that is fan base, and that's because fan base was the first app to ever set up where you can go in and get paid as a regular old user. People can subscribe to you and send you money and all of that through fan base. And so not only as an investor, but the overall concept has made all the other platforms begin to start offering subscriptions for their users.
I have to look, see. I learn something from you every week. Fan base. That's a new tool. I have to check out and see what it's all about.
It is
But
an app that is by Isaac Hayes the third, and it's a social media platform. They have it's kind of like how Clubhouse was, where you have rooms that you can do. You can make regular posts. You can do a lot on fan base, but it's a new app, so it's kind of for me. It's a little bit more difficult to transfer over there because the people that I'm trying to talk to aren't there yet. So it's trying to it's building up. He has raised a lot of money. I've contributed to raising money for it. Because I'm an investor, but I'm not saying this because I'm an investor. He's literally the first person app to offer user-based subscription. And then you started seeing now Instagram, you can subscribe to somebody's Instagram and all of that. So
okay, like I said, I'm more familiar with Pops than I am the third. But and the work that he did. So it'll be interesting to look into some of that.
he has the whole catalog of his dad's now, so he manages the his music and everything. He
Okay,
worked very
he has
hard to
all the he
get
has all
his rights
the
and stuff.
masters and all that
Mhm,
stuff. So
mhm,
yeah, okay, hey,
everything. So, yeah,
all right.
uh it's the vault. He got a little
Oh,
vault.
okay, okay. Because that's one of the ways that they steal our music is
Mhm.
they have the masters and the rights, and trying to fight and get them back is it's one of those journeys that you have to go through.
I was
Um,
just I heard that about Muhammad Ali. Somebody posted a video today saying that it's a company that owns Muhammad Ali's name, and they won't let Layla Ali trademark her name because of brand confusion. I was like, man, I wonder how much did he sell his name and the likeliness of it, or did they own it to begin with?
well, back in those days, a lot of things were settled by white men in back rooms with smoking cigars.
Hmm.
And even Don King has been known to sell 105% of a fighter. So
Hmm.
it gets kind of murky when you get back in my generation. It's You know, you know, shit ain't always what it seems. It's,
Right.
so,
That's true. Yeah, and that's why when the person was talking about it, I was wondering, like, man, I wonder if he, because sometimes, even nowadays, when you talk about, there are artists that selling their masters and selling all of, even when they enter 360 deals, they be selling their likeliness and everything. So I just wonder, is it a deal that he's in particular signed, um, that sold away all his rights?
well, I'm sure his court battles and all of the things that he had to go through. I mean, it's possible. Well, hey, man, like we need this and this and this, and why don't you
Mhm.
sign this? And you know,
And just to get it out of the way.
right,
To get the
right.
stuff from under, yeah.
Yeah.
That's
I
normally
mean,
how it works.
and you know,
A little manipulation.
right, and people. Uh, well, even back then, sometimes you trust people when you can't read a contract. Oh, get this to my wife, or get it, oh yeah, Doobie been with me since high school. You
Mhm.
know,
And then
you know,
they don't even know what they're saying, and so
right,
they just like, "Okay, it look
right,
good to me." They see the dollar signs, "It look good to me."
right. Plus, if you get him to sign this, we gonna give you.
Mhm,
So,
mhm,
so,
mhm. I
so,
think that I don't like to make excuses for Robert Kelly, but I think that that's how everything that has transpired in his life and led to him and his demise is a whole lot of people like, "Oh, if we get him to sign this, we about to eat too." Or and now all we gotta do is get him a little, you know what I'm saying? We get him a little young tender, and he ain't even gonna be thinking about what we doing with the money.
hey, they used to work at the dice game too. I'm just
Mhm,
saying,
mhm, mhm,
you,
mhm, mhm.
you, you know, pull up so and so behind me. He ain't gonna count that money because
Yeah, if he distracted by some slam, he ain't even gonna be paying no attention. Go ahead.
yeah, you know, hey, I'm, bringing my street life into this. Let me get shut the hell up. I'll, I'll be like one of them young rappers in a minute, telling people where, anyway.
Stop.
Uh, so, so now, I at first, I was kind of, you reap what you sow.
Mhm.
I'm talking about Kanye and Kyrie, you know. And when I saw, that it seems like the only way, to, let's be blunt here, to shut a nigga up is to mess with his money.
Mhm.
So I kind of thought, and maybe I'm going way out here, but tell me what you think here. Is like when slaves used to run away,
Mhm.
and they put them up at the whipping post to humiliate them in front of all the rest of the slaves and
Mhm.
punish them. I'm kind of thinking this is an analogy,
Okay.
regardless of how, I mean, regardless, look, I've been kind of, like saying things about Kyrie ever since he came out with his flat Earth theory. But I real, but then I've kind of read that, Kyrie's not the only one, you know, and I'm not saying that I subscribe to, to me, being, in the army. I mean, land navigation was part of my indoctrination. So I'm not going on the four corners theory. But anyway, it seems to me that this has become the acceptable way to punish niggas now when they get out of line. What's your thoughts on that? Am I reaching here or what?
So I actually heard a video earlier, and I want to play it, but I don't know if I can. I heard a video earlier that a guy that I know from Phoenix posted where it was like a blueprint. So if somebody get out of line, this is how we put them back in line. And when I heard it, it made sense. Now, of course, I don't agree with half the shit Kanye be talking about, but everything that he is saying is not necessarily wrong. Um, I have a problem with the way Kanye says things in particular. And with Kyrie, I don't even feel like I think that they are going above and beyond with Kyrie, but I think that that has something to do with not being able to suspending for real for the vaccinations. You know what I'm saying? Like he bucking everything. We can't let this nigga buck everything. You know what I'm saying? So, because all he did was mention a movie that he found interesting. He didn't say, "Ooh, go watch this." He didn't do nothing extra that was like he was putting money behind the movement or nothing like that. All he did was posted a video that he watched, and he didn't even
But
post the video. He posted the title of the thing,
I
and
think I think Kyrie was more a matter of timing. If Kanye hadn't done it first, then
yeah, then it
Kyrie
may have been
then,
something
then, then,
different.
then then Kyrie would have been kind of like just like they washed away the vaccination thing. I think they
Mhm.
would kind of I think the timing I think was wrong.
And then the reporter didn't make it better, and it seems as though he was intentionally trying to sabotage him with his words.
Well, I mean, the man represents ESPN. That was one of those red listed Kanye had on that on his phone. I mean,
I mean, no, and listen, what that's why I say what Kanye said wasn't necessarily wrong. My problem is again the way Kanye says things, but I also believe in knowing who your audience is. I believe in just basic there are some things that we need to talk about as a community that doesn't necessarily need to be televised and talked about out loud. And that's the one thing I like about Farrakhan because Farrakhan will call a meeting and you know what I'm saying, say whatever he need to say to who he need to say it to behind closed doors. And that is a level and layer of protection for yourself, but also for the people that you're trying to put up on game. Because now when you do what Kanye did, it's the trickle down effect. So anybody that even goes to Bry in their mind, now they're under a microscope now. Anybody that agrees with Kanye, like Kanye's post or anything, now they're kind of like, okay, nigga, what you gonna do? We watching you too now. You know what I'm saying? So anybody that says anything, like you said, it'll be a domino effect. Um, but again, there's a lot of things that have been said that were not lies. Um, it's just the people that's paying them don't like what they're talking about. And again, if you are being paid by somebody, you cannot bite the hand that feeds you.
that that's that like I said, ESPN, or whatever was, an affiliate or any of them. It doesn't really.
I would play this video that say this little part from this book from like I think it's say 1940s or something, but it talks about how they basically
You,
make people look good.
go ahead. I have no problem with it. Go ahead.
Hold on.
They got a playbook against you Negroes. Play it again. In 1943, the following directive was issued from party headquarters to all communists in the United States. It read, when certain obstructionists become too irritating, label them after suitable buildups as fascist or Nazi or anti-Semitic, and use the prestige of anti-fascist and tolerance organizations to discredit them. In the public mind, constantly associate those who oppose us with those names which already have a bad smell. The association will, after enough repetition, become fact in the public mind.
And there it is.
Yeah. And the thing of it is that you know, it's kind of like we have this eyes wide shut. type of mentality because we're looking at it, we're seeing it, we have been it's been those same words are true now in 2022. So
Definitely.
why why haven't we been able to change the narrative? I look at 2024. You had the possibility of Joe Biden at 81 trying to run for reelection, and you have 45 who at that time will be 78. He's born a year before me. So, how did we get to this position to where we have
That's what it's
a,
always been. Old white men. When have it not been old white men before Obama?
well, see, that's once again, I go back to
Before
to
Obama, what was it? Old white men. It's always been old white men.
it's all it's, but they haven't been this old. I mean, see, I can well, I'm going. Hello, Miss Sims. How are you doing this evening?
Greetings to you both.
Okay, so this
Uh,
is the thing though, real quick, is that right now a lot of non-cultured or black people don't realize that black people are coming into information. And I don't want to say the Jewish community because I don't want to single them out, but those that have had us downtrodden, oppressed and all other type of mess, they don't understand that right now is information age. So it's a lot of young people my age that may seem like they're not doing much, but they're getting knowledge, they're getting understanding, they're getting information. So all of the things that are being said is just people coming into knowledge of the truth. And the more people come into knowledge of the truth, the less they'll be able to control the narrative, or the mental aspect of what the narrative gives. Because you have what the narrative is, they give you a narrative. But in the minds, if you can get people to, unscramble all the mess and understand what they are doing, then you can't control their minds anymore. And now that people are coming into knowledge and information, we're gonna see more of this than not of it because people are learning. And they don't want people to know the truth. So anytime somebody says something and now it's enlightening people to the truth, oh shit, we gotta shut them up. We gotta tell them that they bad because um they're gonna know who we are. They're gonna know the truth. Even when I talk about the fact that most copper skinned people are really Americans. We're not African. We did not everybody did not come from my ancestors didn't come from Africa. But the people that was here before, the people that got that big old dictionary that I pulled out before, they know that people are from here. But if we don't know who we are, then guess what? They can control us. So it's
uh,
about knowledge.
Miss Sims, it's funny that Dr. Casey should talk about knowledge because this is the first year that Gen Z is going to be able to vote. Gen Z, we consider 1997. In 1997, we had dial-up internet. We had AOL. You had to have, I mean, it took you. You didn't have YouTube. You didn't have TikTok. You didn't have
I mean,
Facebook.
the internet was just I mean, computers was just becoming a regular thing in households. They
Right,
were really only available in schools.
right. So uh, when uh, Dr. Casey talks about more knowledge being available, how do you feel? Do you feel that has created more empathy among Gen Z for the Republican Party, or do you think that uh, Gen Z is more social based? And I use that because right now we only have Gen Z people that are running for the House. And one is a Republican, one is a Democrat, uh, one is an election denier, but what do you think? I mean, do you think that the Gen Z voters have used that information effectively?
Now, are you describing the Gen Z generation?
1997.
And Dr. Casey would fit into that group. That
Oh,
No,
group.
no, Dr. Casey's is
Oh,
not quite that
okay.
old. Well,
yeah.
So,
actually,
I'm older
that
than
okay.
that.
Uh,
actually she's younger than she would be younger than that, wouldn't you, Doctor
Mm, I'm
Casey?
I'm older than 97.
yeah,
Okay, okay.
that's the first time Gen Z and keeping up with the code words for the
I'm
generations.
about 15 years older than
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
sir.
yeah, yeah. Well, first of all,
But thank you.
knowledge. The knowledge has been out there for years and years. Access to the knowledge has it came into stride in the years that you're talking with the more use of the internet and social media, etc., etc. I think that has blossomed and bloomed. Um, and so your question is, has this affected that generation? Yes.
Has Gen Z been effective in using that knowledge to your opinion?
Uh, in the way as speaking from old school and where I come from, I don't think they have been as effective in certain areas, like maybe the political arena. A lot of them, I can't wipe out everybody, but I'm just thinking of the young folk around me, and I go to meetings and things like that. In various areas, they are very knowledgeable. like I looked at the questions that you kind of sent out today in regards to some of the names that were on it. I have no idea who they were. Dr. Casey would. I would imagine because some people are in tune to that genre, who celebrities are, etc., etc. And it's kind of like when when I was going to Metro State or talking to some of the teachers at Metro State, which is a college here, college university, and it was frustrating to the staff when young folk would come in knowing how to use the computers, like I said, in regard to what they were interested in, but in terms of homework assignments and writing up using Word documents, etc., etc., they weren't as knowledgeable, and they didn't know kind of that aspect of the technologies that was created frustration with the college staff, because eventually they had to set up courses to bring those generations high school graduates up to date in regards to using that. They weren't The students weren't dumb or anything. It's just their experiences. And so, in certain areas, I would say they've been more effective than our generation, James's was. But and I'm thinking more politically, and some of that I want, if our generation passed down that knowledge, or it has made it even available to, in a way, to that the various medias that this generation uses.
Okay, so before you came on, I was asking Dr. Casey about Joe Biden and Donald Trump,
Hmm.
and as she said, it's always been old white men. But when you just mentioned that, and you and I are in the same generation,
Hmm.
and I think there's more of our generation falls into your category than mine. And that's when you said that some of the names that I mentioned, you had no idea who they were.
Hmm.
How can we reach a younger generation if we can't speak their language?
Well, if we if if we are really concerned, my generation is really concerned, and me, uh, in just what I said, then we will find a way. We will have to make it deliberate how to reach this generation most effectively, and where they're at, we have to go. We can't wait and sit back for them to come to us. We have to go to them in the most meaningful and way. And once we reach that population, we need to think about how we delivered the message to them.
But
And it
Dr.
can be, like, old school type. It's where they are and they're thinking, and have to reach. Part of the message would have to be bring them and get them to think of, hey, you are included in this. This affects you, and then be able to tell them how it affects
but,
them.
but Dr. Casey, doesn't most of my generation, and I'm referring to Miss Sims and I, don't we usually consider these Gen Z the thugs and thieves of our neighborhood and are kind of reluctant to reach out to them?
No, I think that that would be a huge mistakenly generalization of what older people think of young people. I don't think that most people think like that. I just think that there is a less common ground to speak about, so they don't know how to approach them. But the information that is at hand has given Generation Z, and those right there before them, a very low tolerance with dealing with things that they wouldn't have been able to deal with if they would have been older. There's a lot of people that would not have made it out the struggle of slavery if this generation was in that time, because we don't have collectively, we don't have the same tolerance level as the older people did. They was allowing a lot more things, and these kids nowadays, they off the chain. They ain't taking none of that. None of that. So I think that but that's why having the information at the palm of their hand is so much better. Yes, the information has been there somewhat, but if you're talking about their, like, now you have files that where you can access the Smithsonian database. You can access different databases that you can't just walk in some of these places and say, "Oh, let me see what you got on your record." You can't do that. It's not common, it's not attainable, and it's not likely to be able to go in some of the information storehouses that are available that had this information a long time ago. Yeah, you could find it in some libraries, but guess what? If one person checked out a book at a library, then if that's the only copy they had, and then nobody returned it, then you not finding that information. And a lot of times, those type of books are taken, put up, they in a vault. You can't really get to them to see them anyways. But now you have access to information that people in your generation might not have had access to. It might have been like a fable or something that they thought happened, or an old wives' tale. But now we can actually get the information at hand, print it out, and say, "No, this is, I can see what y'all was hiding back there." I think that's the difference.
Uh, Miss Sims, what's your thoughts? I mean, not only do we have the problem in your town, we have the same problem out here in San Diego. How do we reach that younger generation who, as Dr. Casey says, they're not going for that "we shall overcome" speech?
I uh, I I can't wipe out a whole population of that genre. But one of the things is comes to my mind. I've thought about this as we're tomorrow has been election day here in a lot all over the country. In regards to I here in Minnesota, me personally, I don't even know if civics is still taught in our schools. I was taught civics, beginning of civics in the third grade, uh, and that's a start of in reaching that generation. one of the means of reaching them is through what they're being taught, not only at home and other people, but also in schools. Just what it is. A lot of people don't realize that um, the three structures of our political um,
That ain't on Sesame Street no more, Miss Sims. How do I become a bill and you know you really telling people how old we are.
if you need to if you need to if you need to go back to that level in terms of people that are voting or whatever, if you need to go back to that, that's still valuable information and it's easy to understand and you'll get it right away. Yeah, that's a good idea. And one of the things that I told myself I was going to do, one of my friends is running for the school board. She's already on the school board, but she's up for re-election, is to actually connect with her and ask her what is civics being taught now in school, etc. So I need to update myself in regards to if I'm really serious of what I said and reaching that generation to find out, okay, not only I need to be accountable, but what they're being, the teachers and whoever the educators, et cetera, need to be also accountable for reaching them in, for reaching our children in the way that they can.
Now, a person with school age children, I would like to say that social studies is still being taught. Um, they kind of deep. Maybe because I'm in Atlanta, they teach a little bit different. They teach a lot about different types of history, and but I don't I'm looking it up. There is no federal guidelines on teaching civics or social studies or anything like that. But I know that here, I think they do a good job of
Okay.
giving somewhat of a diversity in education, and the start of the country and a whole lot of other things. But again, here in Atlanta, it's a little different. They teach a lot about Martin Luther King and civil rights and all of those type of things just because we in Atlanta.
Mhm.
So, in other places, I'm sure it's not as intense or not as thorough as it is here.
And so you just connected on as you're talking. I was thinking, okay, I'm glad to hear that's there. And my mind went to, okay, it's being taught. What is the content of being taught? Uh, uh, you just can't. You need to know your history, or being here in this country, et cetera, slavery, etc. But you can't stay in that. You can't stay in that. You have to
Mhm.
bring the mind forward to where we are now, and the importance in of that they are important. That generation is important. How they are important, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what I mean when I say and I'm thinking the content of what is
Mhm.
being taught. Yeah.
No, believe me, I literally was on Instagram earlier, and
Mhm.
there was a guy, he had posted something. It was a Jewish man talking about how Magic Johnson shouldn't be as respected after he had AIDS or whatever his little debacle was. And but he was saying how in the Jewish community, like many other communities, they have a fund. If somebody needs help building something or starting a business or getting themselves together, they come together and give them a no interest loan and help people get on their feet as a community. They just do that. But
Mhm.
I know that that happens in other communities, so I agree with the video. Like, yeah, we should do that. I don't know why there isn't a fund for that, but Black people have a sense of we gotta sell the information to each other, while they're giving the information to each other, and that's the biggest difference with that. But I told the guy, because it was a guy that was like, well, all he doing is talking about slavery. It was just somebody that when you hear a message, and a lot of people don't know how to do this, to take the information that you need. Sometimes somebody may say something that's hateful, hurtful, or anything else, but it's what can you learn from what they're saying, and how can you apply what you learn to your life and to the lives of those around you to better you. And a lot of people don't know how to do that. They only hear what they want to hear. It may not even be a negative message, but if
Mhm.
all they see is the messenger, then they're going to look for the negativity overseeing what type of information is he really sharing so that we can go on and take it further and beyond, because it's a lot of information. It's just what type of information you're getting, but then after you get the information, whether good or bad, how are you using that information to change the world, to change what we do next? Because a lot of times I remember looking up different white supremacist websites. I was like, okay, I had in Florida, I lived in front of a guy that had an Aryan Nation tattoo on his arm. I mean, and this is right before I didn't notice until he was moving. But that made me want to move, but it also made me want to know about those groups. Like, what is it that they believe? What is the mindset that they believe that they're coming from? Not so that I can support them, but so that I can get an understanding. Because in order to have a conversation, you have to get an understanding of who you're dealing with. And a lot of times people are so closed minded that they don't even get the understanding of who they're dealing with so they can have an informed conversation.
Yeah. I
See,
agree. I always want to know where my adversary is coming from. I always want to know where my adversary is, what
but
their behavior can be.
but
Mhm,
but but,
and where they come from.
but here's my problem. And I've said this before, and I've been condemned for it before. But it seems like every group that comes over to the United States adopts that policy. As when I came home from the penitentiary, every 7-Eleven was owned by someone of Arabian descent, or the nephew, or every one of them. When I moved out here to California, the same thing happened in the Somali community.
Mhm,
Now they're a political force to be reckoned with here in the city of San Diego. So for numerous, almost a century, we've watched other groups come over and do this. Dr. Casey, as you said, why not extrapolate the part that we need
mhm.
to come together?
Some of it is fear, some of it is being kind of blackballed, but bottlenecked out. Like they're only going to allow for us to know so much, do so much on the like in the forefront. Like we can talk behind closed doors, do whatever we want to behind closed doors, but when you put it publicly that you're doing greatness, then it becomes a threat. You talking about people that's in fear of retaliation from people who have been oppressed for a very long time, so it automatically becomes a threat. And a lot of people don't realize, one, how to have closed door conversations, but then two, how to build in a non-threatening way. That's what one of the things that when I first started speaking freedom, my goal was like, I'm not against the government. This is my stance. I am not against the government, but there is a way that we can all be great here and still, like operate and function. There needs to be structure. So government structure is not necessarily bad, but um it's learning how to function within their system, even if they don't necessarily want us there, because we can be in the system. There can be a lot of because it's a lot of black millionaires now, a whole bunch of 100,000aires now that can come and make what we're saying, but people so tight wadded, people so in fear of like what happened on Black Wall Street and other massacres against black people, that I think that that fear and what you said earlier, how they put Kyrie up there and how they put Kanye up there, and anybody that say anything that they don't like, is a, I don't want to say cancel culture because it's beyond cancel culture. These are people playing with their lives for real. Like they taking money, they making examples out of people who stand up on the forefront and say, "This is how I feel." So that scares people off from publicly doing something. But a lot of things that the Jewish community do, or the Asian community do, or the Arabian community do, they do it behind closed door, and then they say, "Oh yeah, we did this together as a collective." They don't have to broadcast. A lot of black culture likes to broadcast what they're doing instead of doing it and then coming back with the results and saying, "This is how we did it."
Mhm.
Now, I'm kind of agreeing with what Dr. Casey's saying, Miss Sims, because I remember when I stayed with my father, his wife was Korean, and they had a Korean society, and all of their uh, meetings were behind closed doors. And the financial benefits. Whoever was president of the coalition that year got some benefits. The vice president, but this was all shared among the community, not among everybody. They didn't. They didn't. They didn't tell everybody that Son Yacht got $100,000. But
The same thing that they doing with the PPP loans is something that can be done within communities. That's what they do in those type of communities that stick together and build like that. Even when you think about the Amish, the way they come together and they build and get things done. But as African Americans who've almost been pit against each other for, centuries, we find it more of, the game is to be sold, not to be told, but sell it to them. Don't sell it to us. We need it in here so that we can all grow and become better as one. And then sell it to the people that's not in here because that's what they do. They get money, they build a business, and they sell to the outsiders. But we can't, it's like the concept of that doesn't register long enough for us to implement it so that we can, as a community, be a collective.
I think fear definitely plays a tremendous part in what we're speaking to. And James, when you um, before Dr. Casey start answering your question, you used the word watched uh, and things as we watch, and that's part has been part of the problem in regards not only black folk but other folk in terms of being conditioned through the generations. In our generation, I can remember uh, hearing and starting was a strategy. Uh, your vote doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who you vote for. It was a lie then, but a lot of us bought into it until we start thinking about it. And it's definitely a lie now in regards to, and unfortunately, Black folk have been, throughout our history, been put on public display for various reasons. All, whether we're being sold as slaves or as we uh, through the years have been of interest to other cultures around us for some reason. We have always been put out, we in our business, and we have learned not how not to keep things, I close to us in terms of a strategy. So, the majority of it as a strategy to do things and get things done. Then let the world know about our on and our time. We picked the time when we wanted to be known what we're doing. Uh, and so, to me, both of you are correct in regards to what you're speaking to.
So, I think that this is just me subjectively saying this. When you in before Obama time, when you think of the concept of your voting uh not counting or mattering, when you're dealing with two white people, two old white people, and the lesser of the two evils, you may not feel like your vote matter because they really had the same agenda. They just dress it up a little bit different.
but Dr. Casey, has there ever been a time when that wasn't true?
And what wasn't true?
What you were just saying, you have two old white men. I mean,
But that's what I was saying to you earlier. So if you have to pick from two people with similar views that feel the same way about you, then guess what? It don't really matter because whoever in there, they're gonna do the same thing.
okay, now, which brings me to another, and I'm not going to say that this is my conspiracy theory, but this is just something that makes sense to me if I were a gang leader. Okay,
Mhm.
I would make an alliance with whoever it was that had that next biggest gang and promise them that, hey, when I retire or whatever, you get to take over. So I'm looking at Ron DeSantis and Trump, and I'm thinking, like right now, with the election being 2 years out, they can afford to hate each other or to seem like they're uh, that as you say, Dr. Casey, they're not two peas in the same pot.
I mean, it'd be like when you say that, it automatically makes me think about when we talked about Clinton versus Trump, but they both in pictures
Right.
together at the same country club.
Right. So you know, but in order for the Republican Party to be effective, what if Trump said, "Okay, I can only serve one term, but I can give you 12 years in office because I can give you a term as the vice president, and if you play your cards right, 2 terms as president."
Hmm.
So, do you see, and maybe I'm looking in the wrong places. Do you see any Democratic duo or candidates that would have more influence in the 2024 election?
Not right now. But what I was going to say, the first thing that came to my mind is gangs right now, they don't have real leadership. They have a bunch of tyrants. And when I thought that, it reminded me specifically of how the democratic process is ran. You have leaders, but you have a whole bunch of tyrants that are fighting for leadership or fighting to be put in a position or a place to where they can really lead from behind the scenes.
All right,
So,
so we'll just call Donald Trump Suge Knight, okay?
I mean, basically, kind of, yeah.
Okay. Miss Sims, you know who Suge Knight is? See,
He is a very bad guy.
That,
I'm talking
yeah,
about a very
yeah.
bad guy.
That was my son's generation and growing up music wise and all this and
He
that.
didn't get
uh,
worse than what he was back then, Miss Him. He didn't get way worse.
but
And shout
go
out to
ahead,
Uncle
Doctor Case.
Snoop now that he owned Death Row.
But go ahead, Doctor Casey. When you were talking about
So when you're dealing with tyrants, one, I don't think that I haven't heard of anybody that would be capable of running for 2024. I know that they've been talking about Stacey Abrams, but I'm not feeling Stacey Abrams myself
yeah,
personally.
you're not even filling up for governor. So I mean, so
Man, she was going. There again. There are some things with the LGBTQ plus community, but there's also the way she wanted to handle COVID and the way she wanted to have things locked down. She was going to make the vaccinations mandatory. She was pushing for a lot of things that wasn't really a part of the agenda that I could support. So, but other than her, who else? Joe is just say no to Joe. That's my slogan. Just say no to Joe. We can't do another 4 years of Joe. Joe can't do another 4 years of Joe.
see,
So who comes
uh,
next? Who is next that would be a good ticket?
well, see that just like you saying no to Joe, I'm saying no to Camilla. So you know,
Listen, I only supported her for like 2 weeks because she was black, and then I was like, wait a minute, I started looking at her record and stuff, and I was like, what? That's when being black was not enough for me. Once because at first I was like, oh shoot, black woman, okay, and then they started telling me about her record. I was like, wait a minute. black ain't enough because everybody that's your skin tone ain't really for you. You know, they not gonna always make sure that you have the best of everything, especially. And the problem is when you get a job as the prosecutor, your job is to lock people up. But if you have the discretion to not lock some people up that really may be innocent, you're supposed to use that. You're not supposed to just, just go crazy with it. You're supposed to be there to serve justice, especially as a black woman. But her husband is not black. So, if he has any say in how she leans, that can influence, the way she sees things. So, listen, I'm independent.
This is my this is
She also became half Asian when she was talking to the Asian community too. But
I
you
mean,
know,
but that's no different than Trump playing into the mindset of white supremacists. I don't know if Trump do have some racial tendencies. I think that everybody that's age have racial tendencies because that's the way that they was raised. But before he became elected or started running for president, he hung with the black people. He was not accepted into their world
he
like that.
he was good until Obama made a spectacle of him at the press dinner. After that, he completely turned because, as you said, I mean, he was a Democrat for many years. Not that's excusing him, but you know,
well.
he did have the civil rights complaints before he became a Republican. Go ahead, Miss Sims.
This is my where I'm coming from and thinking. The two of you are, to me, are talking the surface level of politics. This is where you need to dig deeper and know and been taught or learn the beyond the surface level of politics. Politics, to me, you can't just look at one person and who they are and what they haven't done in regards to how you see them being able to carry out what's going to be fair and for the for other people. You have to look, you have to know that how the Senate, the House of Representatives, the executive, the presidential thing, the presidential, all work as a team. You have to
I don't think that
understand.
it's as much as a team as we have been told to believe.
I mean, not that you have to go beyond just thinking about the person, because that person, if you vote for them and they go to Washington, they can't make anything happen on their own. They have to collaborate with other people that are there. And right now, with a lot of states having to vote for their senators, right now, the who remains or gains more seats, and I think Democrats better be in there. More seats, more Senate seats. This is where the vote plays into your Supreme Court, because the House of Representatives and the sitting Senate have various committees and responsibilities and duties. The Senate are the ones that, and they're fewer in numbers. There's 100 of them. The Senate are the members are the ones that bring up candidates to serve on the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court, our people are in there for life. A president can only serve 2 terms. And so right now, voting for who the Senate the senators are in various states that are running, that this is how I say it works. You work as a team and know, how each branch connects with the other, and it's like a team. The Senate and the House of Representatives, they make and see bills and back and forth. Once they've made a decision, They passed this bill to be signed on to the president. The president will sign, etc., etc.
See, but we got
So
to
there
go a
you
little bit
go.
further than that
Teamwork.
to the lobbyists because the senators
But
are backed by lobbyists and the people that's
all of
funding
that,
those campaigns. But then,
all of that plays into that. All of that, I agree. All of that plays into that. But you have to think about what's going on, and a lot of times people, um, as I said before, have to think the less of two evils in or wherever you're coming from, and vote for the person that you think at this moment is going to further advance uh, what's going on. Positive things are going on. Once they're in there, you can't just walk away. If you had to hold your nose and voting for that person, then if you really want to be effective, you stay in there. You choose somebody else to run, or decisions that they're making, you stay connected with them and let them know, hey, I ain't going for this. You
but
can't
but
just
Miss
walk away.
once they in the office, it don't
but but
matter.
but
It
hold
does
on, Miss.
matter.
But hold on, Miss Sims. Don't you think that that's the attitude that our generation has that makes our senators 80 some years old, been in the
Hmm.
Senate for the last 45 years, or our House of Representatives, where the average age is 58 now, but the majority of these men that you're talking about are our age or older. Don't you think that's what got us in the trouble that we're in now and why we're in the same predicament to choose between the lesser of two evils?
It has contributed to it right now. The two people that
Dr. Casey didn't elect these people. We did.
right. And so your question is,
My question is,
did we contribute to what?
The
is
mindset.
The two people right
isn't
now,
that
the
mindset?
two people that are out there,
Go ahead.
the two people that are out there as forefront at this point in time is part of the strategy. That's though each party has chosen persons who they think can can keep their agenda and their strategy in front of people will care about, etc., etc. While I'm hoping this time next year, other people other people will be out there considering running or else running, etc., etc. It's part of the strategy. And right now, remember that what I said: strategy, power, control. That is who they're putting in front of people as the strategy to win, and they're digging deep trying to find someone. An example is Herschel Walker. All that he has said and done, etc., etc. I mean, who that they are just keeping them in, the Republicans just keeping him out there with all this the crap that he's pulled and not done. The, their strategy is to he's not the he's not the prize. He's not the prize. Keep your eye on the prize. He's not the prize. The prize is what's going on
But but
behind
but
the
but but,
scenes.
but Miss
Because
Sims, is
there again, once a person gets elected, they just don't make decisions on their own. And you have to remember that as off the wall as some of the stuff that he is talking about, he can get elected by one vote. And when you elect someone, you got to remember they are going to go by what their party is going to tell them to do. Their party is driving the agenda and in the direction of things that they're going to say. They just don't make decisions on their own.
well,
So
but
it
but but
does matter.
but Miss Sims, is it enough to vote for Reverend Warnock because he's the pastor of Martin Luther King's church? Is it enough? Does it, doesn't he have to adhere to his party rules if he's elected also?
Sure. And listen to what both of them are saying, or listen to what both of them are not saying. Listen to what the party stands for. And here again, people vote for vote for various reasons, but you can't just vote on that surface level. You have to think about what goes on behind the scenes, how they are connected, who's driving what, the longer outcome. Help me out
Greetings.
here, Robert. They don't believe me. They don't believe me.
Brother Williams, how are you doing this evening?
I'm making it. I'm making
Okay,
it.
well, I'm gonna bring you right in on controversy right away, uh, uh, because I was talking about a little earlier Kanye and Kyrie,
Mhm.
and uh, I call Kyrie flat Earth because as yeah, I mean, uh, as I said, it's hard for a military person to think of the Earth being flat when you think of land navigation. So I have a little trouble with that. But anyway, I'm thinking, when I look at how Kyrie was handled, he was suspended 5 games without pay. Uh, Possibly, he also gave a non-apology apology. And I look at what's happened to Kyrie and I mean, excuse me, Kanye, and how things have happened to him since his statements. And I'm thinking, I'm thinking of a runaway slave. When master bring
Yeah.
him back to the plantation and put him up to the whipping post and whip him in front of the whole, uh, population of slaves. And maybe I'm stretching things, but has this become the new whipping post, taking away this cash? You cut off the resources. Has this become the new whipping post?
Well, I wouldn't consider that a whipping post. And let me explain why. Is especially when you talk about capitalism to the degree that Kanye is involved in it, is that in essence, in order to get at that level, you have to have already done certain things that put you in the category of knowing what your place is.
Follow the money. Yeah.
And so, from that standpoint, when it's pulled away from you, it's because you chose to bite the hand that feeds you to a degree.
That's what
You
I said
chose to
earlier.
you chose to ignore the fact that you were put in that place by those people that are those red letters, the red indentions that he made. Those are the ones that he knew put him in that place, and from
He's
that
messing with the
standpoint,
money.
he knew that from the get go. It's not like that was a surprise to him. It's not like he just learned that overnight. He knew exactly how he got where he was, and he happened to have a hissy fit and thought that he would be able to get the backing. I don't know of who, but get the backing of supporters by simply crying wolf when they did something or disagreed with him on one level. So
Because
I
he
don't
used to
consider
play
that a
that
whipping
game.
post. Yeah, yeah, he
He
played that
plays that
game.
game.
Period.
Mhm.
Yeah, and not only did he play that game, but he went in with head first into the game, knowing exactly what he was getting into. So when they pull it away from you, you know what's going on in that level. But
Mhm.
what I would say is, again, it kind of goes back to what I said last week. I commend the fact that he's doing it. I don't think he's doing it because he's righteous. I don't think he's doing it because he really is concerned about toppling the quote unquote untouchables. I think he's doing it because he figured he could create some type of controversy or exposure and create a strong enough ripple that it might have some type of effect on for his benefit. And see, that's
Mhm.
the thing you got to understand about him is that he whines and cries and complains when it's to his benefit. Now, if he was sincere about addressing them, it would have came it would have came at a whole within a whole different set of circumstances instead of when it's something that he disagrees
What
with,
going his
going back
way.
to the whole yeah back to the whole contracts that he claimed he wanted out of. So that's how I would look at that. So I wouldn't call taking something away from somebody that that you gave to, saying, hey, when I give you this money, it's because you selling your soul. When I give you this money, is because you misleading out your people. When I give you this money, is because you agree that white lives matter. So at the same time, when I take it back from you after you done agreed to all of that, I don't consider that a whipping post. To me, going back to talking about the whipping post, I would look at that would be with Colin Kaepernick, what they when he attempted to
Mhm.
address, and the way he went about it was not because it was something that happened to him, not because something that he uh had a personal vendetta against, but actually wanting to stand up against what is wrong and using
Mm.
his platform to do so. And so that, for when they snatched the contract from him, I would consider that a whipping post,
Yeah,
because
he
at
wasn't
that
even
point,
trying to be
yeah,
like
yeah,
it was just a gesture.
right. So that to me, I would say that about him. But Kanye, no, Kanye don't get that credit. Kanye don't get that credit. I like the fact that he did it, but he don't get that credit, and that's simply because I happen to know what he's saying is true, and those
Mm.
people in the music industry happen to know what he's saying is true. And but the point is, he's no different than anybody else in the industry. Is been controlled by them, and it's going to continue being controlled by them. And if I would say, if he really wanted to make a powerful gesture, then what he would have done, and maybe can still possibly work towards doing now, as regroup itself and work on getting this to creating a distribution channel and media outlets that black people own and control. If you really want to make a change and fight the system, then you put the power back in your hands. Period.
So black owned kind of don't exist because you got the FCC that runs everything. So in order
Mm,
to be even broadcasted or syndicated in any way, shape, form, or fashion, even with Revolt, even though you own the network, as long as they control what you can post on, from the FCC, then because when you think about black radio, they can't really do a lot of political stuff. They have to let the candidates come on there. It's certain regulations that
yeah.
they have to follow to even be a part of the FCC. That's why it's only so many channels. Like it could be so much
Mm,
more TV than what is available, but it's capsized. They make it to where no, we gonna keep it contained just like this. So you're right. A lot of the stuff that he's saying is very accurate, but that's what, again, what I was saying earlier. It's a lot of stuff that we have the potential to learn more about now than we've ever before. And the
mhm,
fear is that now we're in a position to where it takes one person to spark the mind of somebody that could actually realize what's going on, and then most people catch on, and then the power shifts, even if they don't want it to shift, because now the mindset shifts. So if you shift the
right.
mindset of people, then it don't matter what the narrative is that you're pushing us. We already know what's behind the narrative now. But as long as it's behind the curtains and smoke and mirrors, then you can
Mhm.
you can finesse people a little bit better.
See, to me, it's kind of like the neighbor that puts a Trump sign in his yard. Trump loses and he takes the sign down. Well, he might, come over and, help me do something around the yard, or, he might contribute to the neighborhood. But I still know
Hmm.
that he had that Trump sign in his yard. No matter how much money I take from him, no matter how many times I say hello, Joe, or wave at him in the morning, I
But
still got that sign. Uh,
would you take money from him knowing where he stand? That's
See, now
that's the part.
there
That's
you go.
creating.
Most people don't have a
That's
cutoff.
creating that obligation. That's the whole
Yeah.
point. That's the obligation that they create. And we
Hmm.
hear it all the time. And I'm not much into sports, but y'all can tell me all the time, the where basically when a sports player get drafted, the first thing they want to do is they want to throw the two whites at them. Some
Hmm.
coke and a white woman. They want to put you in they want to put you in check from the gate, so that if you
Because
do
if this
something
nigga do
wrong,
anything, yep, we already
we
got
got you.
we
Yeah,
got
yeah,
everything
We
in place
already
to set
got
him
you.
right on up.
yeah,
A failure.
So
And it's
that
this
that's
not
part of the
even gonna be a
contract.
good white woman. The white woman is gonna be quiet and meek. It's gonna be the one that's gonna ruffle your feathers. They done found somebody already that know everything
Hmm.
that you need in order for it to be um hit or miss.
Miss
And that's
Sims,
part of the contract.
I,
Hmm.
I saw you like an old church member there with it saying amen in the background. Give us your thoughts.
On what? I mean, this conversation has gone extensively now. Bring me back to what you want to know, James. Don't waste your brain cells. Brain is still
I, I, I ask you
okay.
about Kanye's punishment. And did you think that his punishment, taking dollars away from him, and this sports figure that I'm talking about in basketball, they suspended him 6 games, which cost him about $3 million.
What did
Uh,
he do?
he
The sports figure.
he advertised. No, he told people that they should go look at a certain film.
Did he say it or did he just simply
He
I
he
post
think
a
he
tweet?
just
he
posted.
posted it. He didn't actually
He didn't even
say it out
he
loud.
didn't say nothing. He
He
didn't say nothing.
right. He didn't say anything,
They
but
slapped him on his wrist is what they did.
well
5 game suspension. He got slapped on the wrist.
Hey,
but
but
also
nigga, you know,
yeah,
don't do that
Yeah,
again, nigga.
uh,
Nigga, do that again,
we
and we gonna see
we've
about
been
it.
yeah
right.
we gonna end your
But
career.
but
You gonna
also
get a rape charge on you.
it was the timing. It was the timing. If
Yeah,
Kanye hadn't said anything first, then this might have never been. This might
right,
have just went under the radar. But
right.
anyway, what I was saying, Miss Sims, do you think that these people taking away these endorsements and this money from these entertainers is the new public whipping post, like they used to do slaves when they got out of line, and they'd
Mhm.
whip them in front of the whole population.
Um,
Mine's a terrible thing to waste now.
that's right. You stop it. Stop wasting your mind. I keep telling you this. Okay. Now we're talking about both celebrities. Okay. Number one, I think it would be it's disrespectful to compare what they did to slaves at the whipping post. Two different things to me. They're messing with somebody's money and handing
Slaves were money, Miss Sims.
That
I'm
was the money,
If
I'm
you
talking about the
but
behavior.
same difference.
I'm talking
no, you can't make that difference. Slaves were money, plain and
right,
simple. You can't make that distinction.
right. But the slaves weren't getting any of that money. These two characters got millions, and what they were being penalized, it's not going to take them to the poorhouse. What it did do is maybe it shows me maybe they didn't know, they didn't read the fine lines of their contract and what the owners, whoever that was in charge to put them in the
That wasn't
position they
fine
were.
print, just so you know. That's big
Well,
and bold letters.
Mhm.
I'm talking about when they
Stay in
signed the
line, nigga.
contract, they didn't
That's
know the
that's
behind the
all that.
scenes stuff, or their mind wasn't on the money trail that what they were doing and said uh, that they were interrupting. Their money in their pockets, like they're not gonna go broke. But if whoever they're playing for or whoever they're connected with, they're in business to make money, when these people are gone off the scene. Now you start messing with somebody's money that's going into their pocket, especially if they espouse to be this, thus, and so, and what you've done or said is going counter to that. The people that are in charge, in order to keep making money, they have to insert certain things, uh, rules and regulations and penalties or whatever, or else their money trail will be permanently affected by other people and sponsors and advertising. Like Robert said, I think it's just a slap on the wrist, really, in regards to their penalties or whatever. They're not going to go broke. They got money in the bank, but their money, what they have in safe, is nothing compared to whoever they're accountable to, and their money trail and their money. They're in business to make money, the
Now,
owners and whatever.
Now the NBA is gonna make money regardless. So is the
Yeah.
NFL. Um, and those people are not above reproach when it comes to being broke, because when you people think having more money means that you actually have more money. More money normally means more expenses. It means more debt. And a lot of times people that we think got a whole bunch of money, they got more debt than they got money.
I
So
agree
you
with
can
that.
I
easily
They
agree
take
with
away
may
a
not
you.
con-
manage their personal money. You're right. I
you
agree.
can easily take away a person's contracts,
That,
endorsement, and other things, and they go broke. We've seen it. It's like the
yeah,
lottery. You win a
Yeah,
lottery if you don't manage your money right, which most athletes and or recording artists don't.
don't.
They
Right.
easily go broke, because guess what? Soon as they sign this deal for a 100 million, they go get a 150 million house. Then they go get a $250,000 car, and most of these things either got mortgages or they leasing, or you know what I'm saying? And then the other obligations that come with that. Then I mean Kyrie is not in the situation, but Kanye is damn near at the door of whatever spousal support or whatever it comes with when you get a
Mhm.
divorce, all that type shit. It's easy to go broke as a millionaire and a
I guess
billionaire.
I agree with that. I agree with that. But here again, in my mind, it would make them a person in that position to be even more aware of their behavior, their negative behavior, the negative things that they say and do. If they're, if and they hadn't, if they went ahead and did what they did, they hadn't thought it through in terms of how it's gonna possibly send them down the broke trail.
Uh,
Their mind and thinking was on something else. Could have been driving that for their behaviors and their actions to go the way that it did.
uh, Brother Williams, I wanted to address something that you were talking about last week, and it's a concept that me and Miss Sims are certainly familiar with, at least during our bringing up, and that's boycott.
Mhm.
Less than 10 people showed up with T-shirts at Kyrie Irving's game before he was issued all of these penalties. It only took less than 8 people to show up with T-shirts condemning his tweet. Like you said, he never said anything out of his mouth. He tweeted something, a suggestion.
Mhm.
Just as I was using the example before of how other groups have come over here and managed to keep the wealth within their communities, what is it that we have gotten away from where we have, well, what is it that has gotten away from tools that were once effective to the older generation, but don't seem to transfer down to the younger generation, such as boycotts?
Well, I would say a lot of it has to do with, you know, learning the lessons from being in a position to where we are in control of our own destiny. The part to me, unfortunately, part of the problem is that as a result of being segregated and dealing with segregation, we were forced to have to learn how to deal with economics. Whereas now, in an assimilated society, I think people have lost the essence or the definition of what economics is as opposed to currency. And so let me even just say that. Whereas economics is the process of controlling resources, currency is the process of controlling economics. And so those people that are quote unquote the untouchables or in power, they control the currency. Unfortunately, most of our people tend to think that by having currency, then we have wealth, as opposed to not recognizing that the wealth is actually the ownership of the assets or the resources, which is controlled through economics. Because if I just simply have a lot of money in the bank, or but that money is not attached to anything other than, again, the bank, then that is currency. Whereas currency can shift value at any given time. Currency can be seized from you from that standpoint. So by the time you put money in the bank, which goes back to what's also referred to as economic capacitance, you put money in the bank and you let it charge. When you actually try to withdraw that money, that's economic conductance. So if that $100 that you went to put in the bank, the time you go to pull it out in what you want to buy with it, which goes into economics versus currency, if it is worth more than the money that's printed, then again your actual ability to attach it to a resource is limited. And so by them controlling real resources and us simply playing the game of currency, we will always end up at the short end of the stick because we don't control currency. We don't control it. We can get as much economic capacitance again as we want. This is how a person can go from being a billionaire to snap of the fingers being a barely a multimillionaire, is because he's simply dealing with economic capacitance. Capacitance is what's called charge. Is something having a charge. The thing about that is not kinetic. That is not the actual energy. And so we have to look at economics as just as an energy system. And by looking at it as an energy system, you realize that capital itself is is being able to monetize a resource. This is why we are athletes. This is why they take hip hop and make money off of it, because they've monetized our culture. They've monetized our abilities. They've monetized our labor, and then they turn right back around and they make us pay for access to something that we owned in the first place that they monetized. See, that's when you're in control of the currency. See, we don't get how
Inflate.
that works. And since we don't even know the difference between currency and economics and resources, we're lost in the shuffle. And when you had segregation, we were in control of our resources because we actually had no choice but to build up our own community. By having control of my resources, which is that land base, at that point in time, now obviously currency and the economics will flow naturally through that resources. But if you try to hit it from the back end and you think you're gonna build up economic capacity and simply have a lot of money, but don't have no actual tangible resources,
Mhm.
then that money can be taken away like it ain't nothing. That kind of goes into the whole game that's played with stocks, right? A stock can be worth a certain amount today. Tomorrow, that stock can plummet and ain't worth the damn. That's economic capacitance, because at this moment in time, it has a specific charge. But when you go to use it, when you go to make claim on it, those that control the currency can turn around and make that capacitance not worth a damn. And so all of a sudden you become broke. Why? Because you put all of your quote unquote wealth in the current in the use of the currency, as opposed to real wealth and real assets and real resources. And this is the game they keep us playing.
And that's how we turn into new slaves, because then you are
Yes.
indebted to what their
Yep.
system is. Like
Robert,
if they pull the rug or from up under you, there's nothing that you can do, because your net worth has gone down, your resources are already limited, and now you have to play into their hands. The only way you don't come to that is if you're willing to take a stand and kind of build your own. But it takes so long to build your own that most people don't want to do it.
Yeah, and going back to what you're saying, hell, they sold us the rug. So when they
Mhm,
pull, going
mhm,
into Kanye's position,
mhm.
when they pull that rug from up under you, you
Oh,
can't be
we
acting
taking the
like you didn't know.
And
yeah,
And
that,
because
and,
we
and,
gave
and,
it to you.
yeah, and let's talk about that from just the music industry. The music industry, they say all the time, if you want to know about the money, look at your books. What is it that the industry don't want to do? They don't want to show you the books. You go
Mhm.
asking about them books, you finna get in trouble, because now that they open them pages, they're gonna start looking at it and they're gonna be like, well, you know what? You actually owe for this. You actually
Mm-hmm.
owe for this. You actually owe for this because you didn't ask to look at the books, which means you didn't ask to try to see what's going on with with the money that you claim you made, but they actually own. Now all of a sudden they're gonna penalize you for wanting to know what's going on with your money.
Unless
And
you
the
got a good
way
accountant.
yeah,
Robert
and
is
plus the way they do that is also what a lot of times with the hip hop artists don't and the recording artists don't understand is they think they're doing good when the industry turns around and buys the cars for you. They buy the house for you. They don't seem to realize what's happening at that point is the business is buying it because for one, now that business owns it. Just because you stay in it, you don't have deed on that on that title. And at the same time, it is a business write-off to them. So if
Mm-hmm.
things go south, all of a sudden they got to do is liquidate that asset. And then at that point, you're gonna get what? The rug pulled up onto you again because
Mm-hmm.
you don't own that house that you staying in. You don't own
Ask,
that car that you driving.
ask
That's what
Lamar
they do.
Odom. Uh,
That's where the that's where them advances come in also. That but we
Yep.
talked about 360 deals and how that works earlier.
go ahead, Miss Sims.
uh, Robert is very knowledgeable and he puts things eloquently. Now I'm going to take old school. I'm going to take you to the bottom line, back to the bottom line, and what he said. When you put your money in the bank, your money does not stay there in the safe place. The powers that be uses your money to make more of their money. The
Yep.
interest is, that the interest, little interest that they give you is, your reward for letting them use your money per se. But your money, and that is why you are allowed to take but so much daily out of get so much daily of your own money. This is why, if you want to draw your money out, all your millions out at one time, it throws them in a spin because they are using your money someplace. Your money is not in that bank. Your money is gone on and making money for somebody else.
That's
And
also
so,
why it's illegal to have a certain amount of money in your own possession because
Yep.
they need to be able to dictate what you do with your money, and they can't do it if everybody got a million, 2 million in a mattress or
Right.
in the backyard somewhere. They can't do that, so that's
yeah,
why
it
it's
goes back to
illegal
what
to have
Robert was
large
saying.
amounts of
It
money.
Yeah.
goes back to
You
what
you
he was
you
saying.
don't own the money. If you
Yeah,
damn that's like you ripping up $100 bill. Technically
yeah,
you rip up $100 bill,
yeah,
what is the ATF can come knocking at your door.
yeah,
You
yeah,
don't own that. You don't own that currency.
yeah.
You don't
And
make the currency.
yeah, and
You
James,
it's an exchange.
going back to you used the word boycott. To me, at this time, in the way things are going, using a boycott is your ace in the hole in
Hmm.
terms of you whatever's going on and you feel before you boycott and using your ace in the hole. I my thinking was go in, talk to whoever's doing wrong, etc., etc., and let them know you know what they're doing, what they shouldn't be doing. Put them. Here's where you can use gain some possible power in letting them know that you have power in regards to push come to a shove. You and your supporters, followers can do boycott on them and stifle
That's how
their.
you get dosed with that fentanyl.
Okay. Miss Sims, let me ask you a question.
That's how you get that overdose of
When
fentanyl.
when is the last time that black people have boycotted anything other than Woolworths back in the 60s?
I don't know, James. I don't know if a lot of
So so
black
so
women,
so
black or white or green people, even know what the word boycott means
we're
and
talking about,
how it can be.
but Miss
Well,
Sims, we're talking about boycott as it pertains to the black community, not the
I'm
blue community, not the white community,
okay.
not the gray community.
I'll narrow it down. I'm not sure even if the total as many people in the black community realize or know the meaning of boycott, how it can be used to effectively make some gains
Oh,
for
oh,
for them in their right in their present day, or looking back historically and seeing how a boycott has been used and has shut down certain things.
so
And
if it's such an effective tool, why don't we use it as part of our toolkit?
a lot of people don't know about it.
We mean they don't know about it, Miss Sims. They know about Dr. Martin Luther King. Every
Well,
January,
what you
every January, you see the march across the bridge in Selma. How come they don't know about it?
do
Everybody.
you well,
Uh,
let me put it in a different way. Do you think everybody realized that what was going on, they would use that word and put that in category and see that as a boycott per se?
well,
And I think people
oh,
say a protest, people protesting. I would hear the word protest, etc., more so. And I'm not putting everybody in this category, not knowing and not realizing the value of boycott, what was going on, what gains have been made. Even today when I hear people speak of our history and what was going on, how we celebrate, use the word boycott.
but as elders, isn't this part of what we were supposed or should have passed down to
Sure,
the next
yeah,
generation?
yeah, yep. I agree.
Okay.
We
As
should
many
have.
as many Martin Luther King days and celebration of honoring Rosa Parks, we know what boycott is. It's just not as effective as or well, I'm not gonna say it's not effective. The attention span of people today
Yeah, there you
is
go.
not
I
long
just
enough to honor being able to cut something off that they use regularly.
I didn't say everybody, but if
I'm
any,
saying it.
okay, but do you think people who aren't voting see their votes don't count, etc.,
They're
connect?
not using it as a weapon. They're not using not voting as a weapon because if that, and I've heard
I'm
people
not
try to
saying
come
that.
with that BS. No, they're not doing that. They're not educated enough to even try to talk like that. I want to say this. I want to make a prediction, y'all. I'm gonna say this on this show now. I think as soon as we were to call ourselves being smart enough to boycott, that's when they're gonna drop the Harriet Tubman on the $20 bill.
Mhm.
I think as soon as we call ourselves being
That's
smart enough to
easy
do
money for you.
that,
That's easy
they
Yeah,
money
gonna
for
yeah.
drop
you.
that. That's when that'll get released.
Stop trying to take my money in the easy way. I'm not gonna take that.
That's the ace in the hole. They waiting on us to get think that we
To
smart
be able
enough,
to use it.
and yeah, then they gonna give us a reason to not.
That put your picture. That put James's picture. Money.
They very
I,
manipulative
I,
like that.
I,
Yeah,
I've had my picture on a couple things, Miss Sims, but I never thought it. I never
You
thought of
ain't crossed
currency.
down the boy. When we talk about some
Hey,
in the
my,
police station, James.
hey, uh,
they
that's
say
out of your
a
that's
serial
from
number is
your
a serial
that,
number, right?
that's from your mouth, Miss Sims. I know not what you're talking about.
I know. I read your mind. I read your mind. You've been wasting your brain
Not in
cells
the statute of
over
limitation.
answer I just read.
Oh, hey, as always, a great conversation with everyone. Miss Sims, you want to start off with your last words? I guarantee I got something to say tonight. Don't worry
Yeah.
Hey,
Oh,
cut you off.
well,
Uh,
at this moment in time, with the elections being tomorrow, I'm very concerned, and uh, my emotions are up because uh, I, I just I don't know whether people are getting all the messages that have been out there. This is one of the deciding moments in time, like I mentioned before, in regards to during this election, people that are running for the Senate are the Senate has the responsibility for bringing forth names for the Supreme Court. And I don't think if people are just voting and not understanding that, now is the time for them to get out there and vote, because it in some ways it means more, or it has a longer longevity than voting in a presidential election. And so we can do it. But I'm I'm un, I have mixed emotions at that time. I don't like to have mixed emotions about things. The end.
uh, my final uh, words have to do with something that I mentioned earlier, and that's the possibility of a Republican regime for the next 12 years.
Hmm.
And the reason why I say that is because, as I've mentioned, uh, going back to the way things were done on the political front during my generation, where you had so many deals made in back rooms, that I think that there will be a backroom deal made between Trump and DeSantis.
Mhm.
And I do not see a formidable Democratic candidate or candidates that can win against this type of unity of discord and racial hatred. But it looks as though that's the way we're heading. And if you don't think that we're in a war now, as Brother Williams keeps telling us, wait until 2028. Dr. Casey, Brother Williams, who wants to go next here?
I
I,
think that we expecting too much out of a system that gives us nothing. I think this is the clear Einstein definition of insanity. We keep doing the same thing. We're running the same hamster wheel. We keep running the same hamster wheel, and we think the sight's gonna get different. It's the same hamster wheel, same cage. Ain't nothing changing. And not because people not whether people use their voice or not, the people that's in charge don't want nothing to change. As long as we got people that's on the Senate and in Congress that's been there for 50, 60 years, there will be no change. That's the biggest thing. I don't care who runs for president if we still get people in offices that make very tough decisions that are from 40 years ago, 50 years ago, 60 years ago. These people are old. They haven't changed their way of thinking. They don't really give a damn for real. They stuck on what is being it because guess what? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And for them, it's not broken. Then the other thing. So I wanted to shout out my son is in a new movie called Seven Churches. He has a small little role, but go check it out. Also Speaking Freedom TV. Um, get books online, Barnes and Nobles, all the major chains for Speaking Freedom, Good Head Group, and Love Gang. And the goal is to support information that can really help us grow. I'm not on here just to be on here because I like to hear myself think or talk or thinking out loud. The goal is to really give information, one, so that you can see my mindset, so that it can interest you enough to go figure out what else am I talking about. Because if I'm talking about the things that I'm talking about on here, it may be something else within my content that may help you grow, learn, and advance in a way. So the things that I'm saying, it is not really profound. It's just a lot of education, a lot of research, and a lot of intensive self reflection that allows me to speak from a place of knowledge, understanding, compassion, and information. Because, again, I research a lot of things that other people wouldn't even think to even go and tap into to see the understanding. But in order to effectively fight anything, to even defend yourself in any fight, you have to know who you're up against. You have to know what's going on in the world around you, because regardless of anything else, if you don't learn how to function in the place that you've been stationed at, then you'll never really be able to excel and reach your full potential. So the goal is education, growth, and full potential. But the only way you're going to reach your full potential is to research the things that cross your mind. It don't have to be exactly what we talking about. Earlier today, before you heard this, something came across your mind and you was thinking about, man, I wonder what does that mean? What does that stand for? Look into everything that interests you. Those things are essential to who you are supposed to be in life. It may not make sense right now, but eventually it will feed into your purpose, and that's what the goal is.
Brother
Right.
Williams?
All right, I'm going to end making a quote from 48 Laws of Power because I think it's perfect based on the things we just talked about. Law number 31: control the options. Get others to play with the cards you deal. The best deceptions are the ones that seem to give the other person a choice. Your victims feel they are in control, but are actually your puppets. Give people options that come out in your favor, whichever way they choose. Force them to make choices between the lesser of two evils, both which serve your purpose. Put them in the horns of dilemma. They are gorged whichever way they turn. And I think that sums up exactly what we're talking about and goes into what I meant when I talk about when most people don't know the difference between currency, economics, and resources. And from that standpoint, I think, you know, and I say this going in, kind of like what I say a lot in regards to us recognizing we're at war, that goes right into what Dr. Casey says about knowing your enemy. Most of us don't know how to identify an enemy. So if you don't even know how to identify an enemy, there's no way you can form attack against it. And so by not knowing how to identify an enemy, which puts you at default as to not know how to form an attack to defend against an enemy, which automatically puts you at default of not knowing how to build or fortify a position of power as a people. When all of these things line up against you, it shouldn't be a surprise that we are where we are. And to those that are in power, as long as they know that they can keep us in a position to where they control your options and you don't have the ability to know that you are actually picking between options as opposed to having a real choice, going into something Kanye said at one point everybody got on him about when he used the word choice, not how he used it, but the fact that he actually tried to expose the difference between a choice and an option. Most people not recognizing that, they hit a glass ceiling and wonder why they're hitting the ceiling. Because again, if you don't know how to recognize an enemy, you can't form a defense against an enemy, and therefore you can't fortify any position of power to even engage into a combative situation while you are at war. So we have to be able to take a step back and do like Dr. Casey said and be able to self-reflect so that one, we can identify and know who we are, what we're looking at when we see ourselves in the mirror, and therefore be able to deal with the internal enemies as well as the external enemies that we deal with on a day-to-day basis, and how these things keep us from being able to come together as a people, and how that's bred into us for us to fall into the mentality of the Willie Lynch syndrome and everything that stifles from that as it applies to us really knowing the difference between wealth, resources, power, economics, and currency. So we have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of recovery to do just to get back to a point of being able to be in control of our own wealth and deal with self sufficiency. So in ending this, I like to say, learn what it means to be self sufficient to whatever degree, whether we talk about individually, family wise, or collectively. Learn these things, and we have to start living by this. And we need to be able to start moving in that direction before we're forced into that direction. Because once we're forced into that direction, now you're stuck in that state of survival and not able to deal with an aspect, a true aspect of living as a people. And so what we don't want to do is go from being from one slave plantation to the next slave plantation. We need to not real we need to like James was saying earlier about dealing with the whipping post. Keep in mind that to me when I look at the whipping post is what they did to break a person down before they got became a certain level. Now once you still decided you wanted to run away from the plantation and they caught you, that's when they cut your foot off. So there's a
Mm-hmm.
big difference between a whipping post and taking a limb. So the whole point now is that they're taking limbs. When they take your limbs, then you're not able to run away anymore, but yet you're still property. So we need to be able to recognize the positions that we're being forced into, and start making proper choices before we are forced to, and then not have those available to us across the board.
In other words, don't sell out. Don't sell yourself out. Don't sell yourself out. Don't sell yourself short because they're banking on not them, not white people, people that know that you don't know yourself well enough to know how to make better decisions are banking on you to sell yourself short, whether they black, whether they white, whether they Asian, whether they Native American, whoever, whenever, however, don't sell yourself out.
Yeah. And with that, I will see everyone next week. Thank you for your time and appreciate everyone's effort here.
Yeah, I
All right.
appreciate y'all.
Power
Bye.
to people.
Good night. Love and peace. Don't go to that house again. James, keep staying away from the house of the rising sun, and I'll see you next week.
All right, Miss Sims.
Good